Here is the Minnesota Lynx's Napheesa Collier talking about the legacy of George Floyd at a recent WNBA game. Take a look.
Thank you guys for taking a minute to honor the life of George Floyd. George was a father, a brother, and a son. And his life, like every life, held meaning. His death exposed the holes that are still in our justice and criminal institutions today. And his 5-year anniversary reminds us that we must continue the fight against criminal, racial, and social injustices. We cannot stay silent. Every life deserves respect and dignity. Thank you.
So why are we showing this? Well, on the one hand, it's because it's the 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, and so they're pointing out it happened in Minneapolis. You know, they're pointing out for that reason. The other is because obviously because the right has lost their mind about the fact that how dare the Lynx acknowledge that? How dare Napheesa Collier acknowledge this murder? And they jump in with things like this. Benny Johnson says this is why nobody watches the WNBA, which I love for several reasons. First of all, because this moron, again, he has the specific brain rot that the right has, which is he doesn't like a thing, so obviously nobody does. Everything in reality has to reflect what I prefer. It has to. There can't be different sorts of people that like different things, and so this is why nobody watches it. Ignoring the fact that it just had its most watched regular season ever. There were weeks where the ratings were beating the NBA. But again, he doesn't know. Reality has nothing to do with their commentary. It has nothing to do with anything. The fact that they have so many people watching, he doesn't want that to be true. It's not enough that he prefers the NBA, or maybe he doesn't. It's that nobody should like a thing that he doesn't. Also, I love that he completely forgets that the scam they've been running is, oh no, we actually care about women's athletes. That's why we never stop talking about trans people, because we care about them so much. How dare these liberals wreck women's sports by letting men play with them? This first opportunity he gets, he mocks the WNBA, and not just anybody. Literally, one of the best players in the WNBA on the team that was the runner-up last year. Oh yeah, no, he loves women's sports, and he's not the only one. Libs of TikTok was complaining about it. Oh, but let me just bring up this graphic too, is when he's saying people need to stand up for women in sports. They need to. Screw these women basketball players. Nobody likes them, they suck. Is anybody seeing through this little scam that they run? Libs of TikTok basically said what most people on the right are saying in response to this. Remember, they've convinced themselves that it is a coincidence that George Floyd died while a guy was resting on his neck. It's all a coincidence. And in fact, George Floyd is the villain in this story because, again, reality doesn't matter to them. And so, again, they hate the free speech that Napheesa Collier apparently cares about this. How dare she talk about it? It's just utterly pathetic. You don't have to pay attention. If you guys don't like watching women play sport, you don't have to watch it or whatever. But again, they can't. They have to try to kill it. So anyway, Yaz, what do you make of this?
Yeah, first of all, I can't believe that it's been 5 years since George Floyd.
That's true.
But here in Houston, it's been in the news quite a bit. Back when Floyd was murdered, even though it didn't happen here, our then mayor, Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, who left Houston to go to Congress and is now deceased, he promised policing reform in our own city in response to what happened to George Floyd. And 5 years later now, our new mayor, who many feel is a big old dino, and I might be counted among those people, when asked about the progress that we've made to that end, basically said, we're not trying to look backwards right now. But just because things aren't glamorous or fun doesn't mean that they did not happen. And the fact that the people on the right, including Benny Johnson, they're trying to make this about the WNBA, and it's weird because it's like they don't have a real reason to be upset or offended about the fact that this man was killed the way that he was, and they don't have a real reason to cite for being upset about him being mentioned at the WNBA. that doesn't make them sound like wild racists, right? It doesn't make them, there's nothing that they can say that doesn't make them seem like horrible people, because who wouldn't look at what happened to George Floyd? And unless you're a racist, who would look at that and say, that is the most horrific thing I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
That it really, like, you have to be inhuman or wildly racist to look at that and be able to justify it in your own mind and be okay with what happened. And also to say going forward, I'm okay with doing nothing to prevent things like this from happening again in the future. And so, they make it about the WNBA because that's an easy, cheap talking point for the right, because we all know that they already hate women's sports, especially women's basketball. I don't get it, but they're just like wildly offended by women playing sports, and you would think that that's not a thing that would bother them, but it is. So,
well, I mean, it has, whether it does genuinely, it has to. This is what right-wing politics is. She's talking about substance. The cops are killing people. He has to turn it to identity politics.
You have to. You have to diminish it.
Damn women. Again, that's what the point of a Benny Johnson is. He's paid by the elites to take substantive concerns and to distract people with identity politics. That's all it is.